And what is your king's food in the hard seasons you in? What is the thing that you have drawn the line, you have resolved? Because verse 8 said, Daniel resolved not to defile himself. Resolved is a made up mind. You are sure about this decision, and nothing can change your mind. This is the decision you have landed on. What is that thing in this season that you said, this right here, I know I'm going to go with God on this? Hi, everyone. I'm back with encouragements from Babylon. And today we are still in Daniel chapter 1, and we are on verse 8. And we'll be reading verses 8 through 14, and I am in the NIV version. So let's start with verse 8. But Daniel resolved not to defile himself with the royal food and wine. And he asked the chief official for permission not to defile himself this way. Now, God had caused the official to show favor and compassion to Daniel. But the official told Daniel, I am afraid of my lord the king, who has assigned your food and drink. Why should he see you looking worse than the other young men your age? The king would then have my head because of you. Daniel then said to the guard, whom the chief official had appointed over Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, please test your servants for 10 days. Give us nothing but vegetables to eat and water to drink. Then compare our appearance with that of the young men who eat the royal food, and treat your servants in accordance with what you see. So he agreed to this and tested them for 10 days. So in the previous episode, we talked about how they were to be in training for 3 years in the Babylonian ways and the Babylonian literature, and they were supposed to eat the king's food and drink the king's wine. Daniel did not resist the 3 years of training. He couldn't resist losing his home and becoming a servant in the king's court. But where he drew the line was when it came to the food. Why? Because it involved his body. He would not defile his body and compromise his relationship with God. If you think about this time frame, think about all of the rules that were laid out around food in Leviticus and Deuteronomy. And the fact that the king's food was more than likely sacrificed to pagan gods. So Daniel would not eat that food to violate the rules of what God had wrote out for them as part of what foods they could and could not eat, how the food could and should be prepared. And he definitely wasn't going to possibly participate in religious practices by eating food sacrificed to pagan gods. That's one thing that stood out. The next thing that stood out is in verse 9 says, now God had caused the official to show favor and compassion to Daniel in exile in Babylon. God is still giving Daniel favor. He is still making sure that he's taken care of. Why? Because God knew the plan that he had for Daniel. And he was going to make sure Daniel prospered in exile. And the same thing is true for you. God can touch somebody to show you favor. God can speak your names in rooms that you haven't even entered into yet. God can make the hiring official recognize your resume. Anything is possible with God. And what is your king's food in the hard seasons you in? What is the thing that you have drawn the line, you have resolved? Because verse 8 said, Daniel resolved not to defile himself. Resolved is a made up mind. You are sure about this decision, and nothing can change your mind. This is the decision you have landed on. What is that thing in this season that you said, this right here, I know I'm going to go with God on this. You're not going to make me believe any different on this. I know that when I was going through this season, in the beginning, I had started watching all these different TikTok videos. And somehow I ended up on the psychic video channels where they were saying spirit told them this and spirit told them that. And because my situation felt so hopeless, I was actually looking and entertaining these spiritualists, is what they call themselves. And I'm like, girl, this is witchcraft. Why are you entertaining this? No, ma'am. Don't go down this road. I know it looks bad, but you need to trust God. That's what I was telling myself. That was I am not going to, this is a line that I will not cross. This is not something that I should be doing. And you may have a similar situation. Sometimes we lose focus. So we need to refocus and trust that God can still favor you in this season, just like he still favored Daniel. And he can send someone to bless you in this season. One thing that has been true since I have been going through this season, that God just sent people to bless me without me asking for it. People have just been showing up, and it was hard at first. It was hard for me to receive help at first. But then I realized that this is God's way of showing me that he is still with me. So that is my encouraging word for today, that God can still show up in this season. He can still send someone to bless you. And think about what your king's food is. What is that one thing that you need to about? Should I cross this line? Yes, everything else is falling apart, and I have just accepted those things. But am I going to just go with the flow on this when I know it's in contradiction to what God has called me to do? Is it in contradiction of what God is saying for me in this season? Pay attention to that. I hope this encouraged you. Come back for the next episode as we finish up Daniel chapter 1. Be blessed.